And good afternoon. It is 3 p.m. here on Friday, October 16th, and we are getting to candidates. And we are back on Middletown Town Council race. Earlier today, we were on Portsmouth. We're jumping back and forth here and bringing you as many conversations with candidates as we can, as we know people have begun voting. As of noon here on Friday, October 16th, 19,000 voters have voted so far. And let's see here. If we go quickly, we are going to be chatting about Middletown today. So as of noon today, 400 people had already voted early at Middletown Town Hall, and 35 mail ballots have been processed for a total of 435 votes already in Middletown. I want to quickly do our other hometowns. Newport has had 505 people vote early, Portsmouth 623, and I can squeeze out another one. Tiverton 410. And let me get to Little Compton, 169, and Jamestown, 411. So Middletown is plugging along. 400 people have already gone to Town Hall and voted. You can visit Middletown's website to find out what hours they are open. Or you can go to vote.sos.ri.gov to see your sample ballot, as well as see what time polling locations are open. You can now, through November 2nd, you can vote early at Middletown Town Hall. Of course, if you request a mail ballot, you can do it that way, or you can go on Tuesday, November 3rd and cast your ballot. Joining us today for a chat about her candidacy is Terri Flynn. She is on Middletown Town Council, and she's seeking re-election. Hello, Terri.
Hello, Ryan. How are you today?
Doing all right. And how are you doing less than 3 weeks away from the general?
It's so exciting. We're, ramping up and heating up. And it's fun. It's great to get out there and hear from voters. And, the whole process is a great adventure. It really is. And thank you for doing this for all the voters. I think the more information they have, the better.
And, I appreciate that. It is very interesting. You've already had 400 people cast their votes. We've never experienced anything like this where just the election day has been spread out over 3 weeks. Does that change anything you're doing?
Yes. Well, yes and no, actually. Time is what time is. So you can only do what you can do with all the other things and all the other obligations that you have. The conversation is certainly, about the voters who got their ballot, filled it out, and sent it in. And what if new information comes up that would have swayed them one way or another in that remaining time? So it is a very different year. Thanks to COVID, or as a result of COVID, I don't know that we're doing anything different. We're still out there, boots on the ground, open to talking to people, fill them in, answer their questions, and as always, whether it's about their neighborhood, the town, or the election.
Let's take a step back before we take a step forward here. And for anybody who may be voting for the first time or paying attention for the first time, tell me a little bit about Terri Flynn. Give me your background.
Okay, so for those who don't know me, I'm 59 years old for about another month, so I'll keep it. I have a bachelor's degree from a four-year college in marketing. I am married for 30 years, just this last year. We have 3 children. We have a 2020 high school graduate, a 2020 college graduate, and our eldest is 26, so he's on his own with medical insurance and the whole bit. Both my husband and I have scouting backgrounds. He's a scout leader, Boy Scouts. I'm a Girl Scout leader. Let's see. We have been on the island for 30 years, 10 years here in Middletown. And I'm, I don't know if you want my experience with, the political arena, or if you just want more about personal, Ryan.
Just trying to get a little background. How long have you been on Middletown Town Council?
This is my first term. I'm just finishing it up. Terms are 2 years for those who don't know. So I've got 2 years under my belt and would like to do a couple more to help Middletown out and Middletown voters.
What are some of the things that led you to throw your hat in the ring originally for Middletown Town Council 2 years ago?
Okay, so you're going back to 2018. So what happened was in 2016, we were noticing a lot of development in the area. The Atlantic Resort went up, and a lot of applications were going in on Wave Avenue, and we're just seeing a lot of activity, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But at the time, our big concern was the watershed of Middletown. And how do these decisions get made? And what's the impact? And what's the accommodation? And so we started asking around and got directed to the Conservation Commission, because the process is, building permit at zoning. Then it gets fanned out. If it's in the Zone 1 or Zone 2 watershed, it goes to Conservation Commission, and typically it will go to the Planning Board as well. So as we're finding out about these projects, we find out that DEM, first of all, they issue a certificate of insignificant alteration. That's what it is, an insignificant alteration certificate, which means that they kind of give it their stamp of approval. But in that document, there's a disclaimer that says that the DEM is not responsible for any system of the project that doesn't work. And so we kind of felt, gee, this is really odd. So who's responsible? And so we followed the information path. Asked DEM. So when you're looking at a project on a parcel, do you look at the impact of the cumulative development? If there's a few things being done in any one area, and is that a concern? And their response was, well, the town looks at that. So we go to the planning department, and we hear from the planning department, same question. You've got different applications, but they're all sort of clustered in the same area. Is there a cumulative effect that's being, considered or evaluated? It's like, no, that really doesn't happen. They just look at the parcel. So this was really concerning to us. And as we went forward in the information trail, we found that a lot of the approvals were being approved with conditions. Like, you can go ahead and do this, but you need to do other things along with it. Like, you can't have hazardous cleaning materials, or you need to, put in this certain water filtration system, et cetera, et cetera. The issue at the time, this is back in 2016, was that there was no follow-up on the conditions. So these projects got done, and then they sort of existed and went on, and all those conditions went into the black hole. And so we started, my husband and I, speaking at, just alerting the leadership that, this is going on. And so we went to Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Zoning Board, Town Council. And that's sort of how it started. And then I got appointed to the Planning Board, another great adventure, learned an awful lot. I really dug in because I didn't have that kind of background. But, if you have the capacity to learn, you can serve, as an appointed or elected official. I encourage everyone to do that. And so then in 2018, I get a little bit more background than you needed, but I think it's all relevant because I never would have normally chosen this path. In 2018, the Charter Review Commission was formed because every community in Rhode Island is required to review their charter at least every 10 years. They don't have to wait 10 years. They can do it every couple of years, ongoing, every 5 years, whatever. And the Charter Review Committee found 28 things that they thought would improve the Middletown Charter. That, and every charter change has to go to the electorate to be voted on. It has to go to ballot. So the committee decided to whittle it down to 10 or 12 things, and by administration, they all have to be approved by the town council to go on the ballot. Well, one of those suggestions by the Charter Review Committee in 2018 was term limits for town councilors, so that more people could consider getting involved in town decisions, and we could have Middletown could have more diversity on town council, because it had been the same people election after election after election. Still is. And this is a an anomaly year. I'm so proud of Middletowners for stepping out and putting their name on the ballot. Well, needless to say, that vote on the term limits was an item that the town council, the sitting town council at the time, decided not to put on the ballot for the people to decide on. And I thought that was wrong. I thought that anything that the Charter Review Committee, a 13-member committee, 13 residents, thought was a good idea, should have simply been rubber stamped by the sitting 7 on town council, and then let the people decide it. And they did not do that, interestingly enough. And so I threw my hat in the ring to give people a choice of town councilors.
You mentioned the big old field that is out there for Middletown Town Council. 18 of you. Why do you think so many here in 2020? I think I know the answer, but why do you think?
So, and technically, just FYI, I think it's down to 17 because I think that one of them did withdraw before the ballots were printed. Okay. So there's 17, just so you guys know, it's not nearly as daunting of a review process as 18. So why do I think, I think there's 3 camps of candidates in the span of 17. I think you have the incumbents, so there's 7 right there. And then you have those that have jumped in my opinion only, who they have a specific agenda on an issue, either school unification or tax reform. And I think that's what really got them to declare candidacy. And then you've got the others who they've actually been observing town council being disrespectful, unengaged, or unprepared. And they think that they can help Middletown out and do better.
Where do you fall in the whole big talk about school regionalization, unification? For the record, where do you fall on that conversation?
So I would if education is your issue, I would encourage voters to go to cesu.news, cesu.news. That's the group that was promoting unification or the exploration of unification through last fall and this year. And they sent out a survey. It was a 1-question survey, which essentially was, do you support an updated study of school unification? And so I said yes. And everyone got to answer it and put in up to 500 or 1,000 words of why. So I say yes, with conditions. I think a study is necessary. You need to make data-driven decisions. You need to make sure that whatever the decision is, it's going to be really great for Middletown students. And you've got to get all the stakeholders involved, the parents, the teachers, the front lines, the students themselves. And I just think that, the study that they were referencing, I did ask for that and reviewed it. And it was fascinating. The study that they had, it may not even be an updated study. It may be a new study because the study that I was sent included all of Aquidneck Island, which includes Portsmouth. So I'm not sure if that would thus, be an updated study or a brand new study. I think that they made a lot of interesting observations. For instance, down south, regional or county schools are the norm, not the exception. They don't have as the local schools like we have here in New England. And I think that, those are different areas, they're spread out, the cost of living is lower. I think all of these variables really need to be looked at and vetted, and we need to be sure when we make a change. But the biggest thing, Ryan, I want to throw out to everybody is that, we have a couple of barriers in the school unification discussion, and they're at the state level. So along with a study, simultaneously, there are some things that can happen at the state level, which will move this along. Number one is the state charter in Rhode Island does not make education a right for its citizens. And this allows the state to pass mandates, but not be responsible for funding them. And so that falls to the localities. And it's a huge issue because, the budgets are tight across the board, and that takes away from our students. The second thing is Title 16. Right now, the only way to unify or regionalize in Rhode Island is through Title 16. And there are definitely some elements that would be unfavorable to the local communities, including Middletown. So I think that those two things, if they could be, taken a look at and handled at the state level. In August, Middletown Town Council passed a resolution encouraging the General Assembly to amend Article 1 and to add to the state charter that education is a right. And that would be a big leap forward to doing anything in education.
Terri, besides the entire discussion on education, what are some of the other big issues or opportunities you're hearing from Middletown Town voters that you think are top of mind?
Well, so the issues haven't really changed in about 12 years. With along with the faces on town council, everyone is still talking, lower taxes. The flat taxes is a fair goal, but for a vibrant, well-balanced community, taxes should go down. Right now, our commercial properties pay about 28% of the total property taxes. The rest is residential. And, not that current businesses should be burdened, but smart growth of year-round industries will reduce Middletown's dependence on tourism and balance some of that tax burden. Let's see, quality education, broader options for students, I think, are critical. And, not only, for our youth today, but I think, college is going to be changing. I think education, the face of education will change as a result of COVID. I think that's a positive. But I think that the middle class isn't going to support traditional college like they have. They're not going to go into six-figure debt, 5 or 6 figures for their student to go to college. The return on investment isn't there anymore. So I think we need to have graduation tied to maybe associate's degrees or certifications so that some of these kids that are not college bound can go into the workforce. And if we expand our education offerings, raise the standards, families will come to Middletown because families will do anything for their kids and their kids' education. And that will support the year-round industries. I see it as very, very cyclical. We got to work on housing, senior and workforce housing. I think those are the issues. They've been the issues. So I think, again, for the voters to really think about getting some new perspective on these issues and some workers to actually take some action. Some action plan is really critical at this juncture in Middletowns as we go forward. And I also think that, the town council in Middletown needs to rebuild relations with the school committee, police department, fire department. I think connecting citizens' needs with community organizations and businesses so they can work together. We're a community of great resources that, that they should be maximized. So, there's not a few doing a lot. There's a lot doing a little to get a lot of things done. And I really think that every resident wants to be ensured that they will be respectfully heard.
Terri, we could talk about all thise issues at length for a very long time. We could take up the rest of the day if we wanted to. But, I've got a couple questions in my head. Sure. Why should people fill the dot next to your name? You mentioned change. If people want change, there's also 17 candidates. But why should people fill the dot in next to your name to reelect you to town council?
So yes, I'm asking for voters' votes because I'm a worker and I have no preconceptions about my knowledge base. Like I said, I just finished 2 years. I have a proven track record of being responsive and accessible to the public. I'm here to help residents. Citizens are at the top of the organizational chart of Middletown. Don't know if you realize that, but they should be made to feel that way. I find the facts, I confirm the facts, I'm prepared for the meetings. I consider decisions I consider end game consequences, I guess is where I'm going with that. If we make this decision, what will that look like, the result of it in 1 year, 5 years, 25 years? I do strive for win-win decisions. that so that everybody, you may need to compromise a little bit, but that it works for everybody involved. I believe Middletown has a lot of potential, and I will work to achieve that. We have such a great community and great citizens.
Excellent. What is the good way for people to get a hold of you if they have any questions or want to talk about any of these issues?
Please reach out. I'm at T Flynn, TFLYNN at middletownri.com, or you can call at 401-300-0388.
Awesome. Well, we will have to catch up again sometime. Maybe after the election, we'll talk about the issues. We'll have a roundup after with the new council about go in greater depth about all of the issues. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I would look forward to that.
All right. Thank you. Terri Flynn, Middletown Town Council, and asking for your vote coming up here in the general election, whenever you may vote, by mail, in person at Town Hall, or in person on November 3rd. I want to thank Terri for joining me today. We'll keep the conversations going throughout the weekend and next week. Thanks for watching.